Okay, I Only Touch Greatness podcast. We got Mike Goldberg, UFC announcer, joining us. We got Pac. He's in the building. My co-host tonight. Big Mike's away today. Let's go. If you like what we're doing, you hit that subscribe button.
If you're looking for a mug, perhaps a hoodie, head on over to IOnlyTouchGreatness.com. Hey guys, this is Mike Goldberg, the voice of bellator MMA. I have been blessed to do just about every sport on this planet. My favorite, of course, is hockey. And now I get a chance to talk to a great Vancouver dude because I only touch greatness. And here we go. Computer audio.
There you are.
There we are.
Hey,
Nice
Mike.
dog, brother.
Yeah, his name's Tupac.
Tupac, I like it. You got the Brock Besser going. I like it.
Yeah, and I got the autograph. That's autographed, and I got the autographed Pedersen up here on the wall too.
Not a bad couple of additions the last few years,
Hey,
huh?
you want to see what I just picked up today? Hopefully my dog doesn't jump. This just came in the mail today.
Oh, how good is that?
Autographed
That's
DK.
fucking awesome. That's
Yeah,
nice.
Came in the mail today. Actually, we were interviewing a hockey guy, Darius Kasparaitis, and the fucking buzzer went off while he delivered my jersey.
Oh, that's funny.
So,
Darius Kasparaitis. Man, that's when I was calling hockey games.
yeah, you remember him?
Oh, fuck yeah. Tough dude.
He was one of the dirtiest players in the game.
No question about it.
But
No
hey,
question about it.
He was pretty good to have on as a guest. Very nice.
I bet he
guy.
was. I bet he
very-
was.
Lots of good stories to tell too.
Oh, I can't imagine. My son had his retro Ryan Donato on last night, and the Sharks almost fucking blew it with 3 seconds, and then the 2-0 with Jonesy save. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And then Donato had that great shootout goal, and then Logan iced it. But Cole and I we were like, oh my God, we can't do this 53, 54 more times. This is fucking ridiculous. Oh.
Hey, at least you're not playing Connor McDavid every single game. We got 10 games against McDavid.
I know. I feel bad. And, you knew he was going to blow up last night.
Yeah,
After
because he
shut
didn't
him
do
down the
anything
first
after
time.
the first night.
Yeah, and Cole was pissed because Mom had the Connor in her fantasy yesterday, and Cole had Hurdle, so he was good, but Connor, was better and got Mom more points, so I think Cole lost to his mom again in fantasy last night.
So you guys play a lot of fantasy sports?
Cole does, yeah. Cole's really into it. He's really into it. I just kind of look at his roster. That kid, when I was in the league, Ryan, obviously I knew everybody. I knew defenseman number 7 and 8 in case number 4 got hurt. And now my son just rattles the names. I'm just like, easy, slow down, bro, slow down. And he's talking about Kirill the Thrill, and then the kid in Minnesota scores a overtime. Yeah,
I know.
Or with the steal. I mean, that was an insane steal and a nice finish.
Yeah, I tried to take. We had our hockey fantasy draft last night, so.
Oh, did you?
So I tried to take Kirill the Thrill, but he wasn't there when I got him. They took him actually 2 picks before me.
Oh, so you almost got him.
Yeah, but I ended up with like a stacked team anyways. A couple rookies. I got Lafreniere and Snutzel as my 2, or Stutzel.
Yeah. Lafreniere is going to be good, man.
Yeah, he looks good.
He does look good. They just got to get him a little bit of help, but there's a couple other decent young players on that team.
Follow the World Juniors?
Oh, fuck yeah. I'm American.
Yeah, I know. We just had last night. We had on John Faranucci. He was on the World Juniors.
Of course, he had some big goals for us.
Yeah, and we've had on Matty Berniers.
Yeah.
He's a good kid, and Sam Colangelo. He was also on the team. And Dustin Wolf, actually, the goalie, but he never played.
He didn't. Well, Spencer Knight is
a beauty.
He was outstanding. He was a beauty. I mean, that's how we beat you guys, is Spencer Knight. And getting off to a good start. And A couple analysts talked about Canada hasn't really played from behind. They haven't played in a tight game. And by the time those kids adjusted to it, they definitely controlled the tempo and controlled the play. But Spencer Knight just stood on his head, and we were able to hold on. But it was fun because my son's American. He was born in the U.S., but my ex is from BC, as I mentioned to you, I think via text. So Cole's sporting his Canada gear, and I'm like, bro. And I thought we were going to get smoked just because you guys were so good. And then we score, and I'm like, all right, don't be a dick because, I know better. And then it was more fun last night, both being Sharks fans. Let's just say that.
Hey, what made you be a Sharks fan? That's one of my questions once we get started. But
I'll tell you this. It's a great story because it has to do with MMA. It has to do with Jumbo. And it actually goes back to Drew Remenda and his background in martial arts. And then Jumbo, last minute, wanting to come to a Conor McGregor fight. And willing to pay, and he came with like Burnsy pads, so that $27 million combined. So they were, but I ended up hooking him up, and as you know, being a hockey guy, Joe Thornton is the nicest man in the world. I had to take my Jumbo jersey down because there was a big glare behind me. That was my delay. I was like, "Fuck, there's a glare." I'm talking to my wife, like, "I gotta look good for Ryan's podcast." But it became Jumbo and my friendship with him, and then I knew Burnsy from Minnesota because I did the Wild the first 3 years, and then he came in, and I still lived in Minnesota. And then Pavs was great. Drew was there, McClellan, and they were just so good to Cole at such a young age, Ryan. And anybody who's good to my son or my daughter, that's how I gauge things. Yeah. And we became diehards. You
can tell a lot from somebody's character, just the way they treat kids.
No question. And that is truly with actresses and actors, because my daughter's an actress. That's always how I've judged it, because I'm blessed to have a cool job. And so people are most of the time going to be pretty cool to me. But if you take time to be cool to my kid, then, I got your back as well.
You still stay in contact with those guys, like even Big Joe?
I do. We hit him right away when he signed with Toronto. Like, I'm heartbroken. I have the text. It's like, we bleed teal because of you. I go, you've always been so great to Cole. He's like, Goldie, I love you. I've been like a brother. It's been so great watching Cole grow up into a young man. And you guys will look good in blue and white as well. And so I hit him back kind of laughing. And then his Auntie Carrie and John, who live in North Van, got him a 97 Leafs jersey for Christmas. So Cole's got his Thornton jersey in the Leafs colors too.
Oh, sweet. But, Thornton's wearing 97?
Yeah, because Spencer offered him 19, and Joby and Joe was like, I'm good. So he took 97 because that was the year he was the top pick.
Oh, good to know. I didn't even notice that yet.
Yeah, and Patty was the number 2 pick. So, and now Patty's back with us. And, Jumbo has talked a lot about, with COVID and everything, being close to home as much as anything, because his parent, and I've met his father like on the parents trip, and his dad, you can see where he gets it. Yeah. And his brother John is super cool. But they're just great people. But he did talk a lot about grandma and grandpa being able to see the kids, because not only COVID right now, but then crossing the border, as you know.
Yeah.
He's playing in Toronto, and he's from London, and so it works out great for him.
And it's good he gets to spend some time with the family and the older family, which we're going through that out here too, where your older family, you don't get a chance to see them because everybody's so scared of what's going on right now.
My mom's in a nursing home now.
Right.
We had to talk to her. Yeah, I talked to her through the window for Christmas. And each time somebody like tests positive, it's not like blowing up. Nobody's like critical or anything, Ryan. But this 14-day clock starts fucking over. And I get another text today. Somebody else tested positive, but everybody else is negative. But that 14-day clock, I said, I just want to see her by her birthday in June at this point. Holy shit.
It was my birthday last night.
Happy birthday. How old?
38.
Damn. Good looking 38-year-old.
That's what the girls say.
There you go. I'll tat it up. I like it. I got mine on my back, and you remind me of my brother-in-law already, Johnny Postle. He's a good dude. He'll always be my bro, though.
Yeah, it's because it's my birthday weekend. We're dipping into the vodka already, so.
I like it. Okay. Fair enough.
So first question on my list here. You're born in Cincinnati. What was life like growing up for you?
for me, it was all about hockey. It was all about hockey. I was born in Cincinnati. My dad just bled Cincinnati, went to the University of Cincinnati, watched Pete Rose at Crosley Field, watched Oscar Robertson in college at UC, and then in the Cincinnati Gardens as a Royal. So my dad was all about Cincinnati, going back to Kenny Anderson, and you had Pete Johnson and Archie Griffin. So I was a Cincinnati sports fan. And I was a huge Marty Brennaman fan because I would stay up and listen on the radio to Marty Brennaman and Joe Nuxall. And I was all about Cincinnati. And, and this one belongs to the Reds on the Big 700 back in the day, and the Big Red Machine. And I can remember being 10 years old, Ryan, jumping up and down on the bed when the Big Red Machine beat Boston in Game 7. And it's one of the greatest memories I have that I've ever experienced with my father. May he rest in peace. It was amazing because I was up. I knew the team. That Big Red Machine is legendary. So as a Cincinnati kid, we ended up moving to Detroit, and my dad was a salesperson for Revlon, and a buddy of his worked for Cheeseboro Ponds, which is Vaseline, but we won't get into that. And he was a hockey guy. And he's like, hey, your kids should try hockey. And I didn't know anything. My family didn't know anything about it. So the first time I showed up, I tried to get the figure skates over the shin pads, and that didn't work out really that well. But I was hooked. My mom faked my birth certificate at 6 years old because you were supposed to be 7 in Southfield. Played for the Southfield TPs back in '72, and the rest is history. We grew up living and breathing hockey. I am DNA hockey from top to bottom, brother.
My co-host is going to be kicking his ass that he's stuck in traffic because he's a Cincinnati Bengals diehard.
Oh, well, then he's suffered like I have. Yeah. Super Bowl 16, I was a junior in high school. Obviously, we had chances to get the ball into the end zone. You had Pete Johnson, you had Archie Griffin, you had first and goal, and couldn't get it in. And then Montana beats us to John Taylor on a drive. Super Bowl 23, I was a broadcaster in Sarasota, Florida. My first job out of school, my first ever satellite live shot was from Joe Robbie Stadium. And Super Bowl 23, as your partner well knows, and history will tell you, Joe Montana, boom, last second drive, Jerry Rice, and the Bengals lose again. So fast forward years later, and I'm getting ready for a UFC, and I see Joe Montana in an elevator, and I just said, Joe, Mike Goldberg, I just wanted to say just a class act, and I have so much respect for who you are and how you are and the way that you portray yourself and give back to everybody around you. And I stopped for a second, Ryan. I said, but you did break my heart twice. And he kind of looks at me and I go, I'm a Bengals fan. And Joe Montana smiles. He goes, I'm not going to apologize. And I was like, perfect answer. I go, Joe, I don't expect you to. But
horrible injury.
Horrible
injury for Joe Burrow this year. And I mean, I take Joe Mixon. He's my keeper in my fantasy league. Yep. So he's a great running back, but I thought I actually even took the Bengals because they were the bottom seed when I went to make my bet. They were minus 40,000, and I bet on this. Right. I bet the Bengals to win the Super Bowl because Joe Burrow has never done nothing but win. Right. And good for the Browns. I mean, I went to high school in Cleveland. I played my hockey in Cleveland. Went to college, played at Miami of Ohio. Then moved to Florida and then bounced around the Midwest after that. But I'm not a Browns fan. I don't hate the Browns. I hate the Steelers and I hate Michigan. I don't hate the Browns, but it's tough for me because of Big Ben, because Big Ben obviously went to Miami of Ohio, and that's where I went to school. Ron Harper was there the same 4 years that I was there. And I had a great run with the Bulls as their sideline guy. But yeah, it's been tough being a Bengals fan, and how Marvin kept that job all those years, getting to the playoffs frequently, but never winning a playoff game. That always puzzled me a little bit. So Browns, Steelers, they're our rivals. They always will be. And everybody in college could never figure out, if I grew up on the west side of Cleveland, why I wasn't rooting for the Browns in a Browns-Bengals situation. And I just said, hey, my dad, born and raised in Cincinnati. I was born in Cincy. I like Skyline Chili. And I love my Reds. I love my Bengals. And we're going to leave it at that. And Boomer Esiason was my favorite player of all time. Do you ever think Pete Rose? This isn't one of my questions. Do you think Pete Rose ever makes the Hall of Fame?
You know, I have said many times, Ryan, that I think they're going to put Pete in posthumously. I think once Pete is no longer with us, they're going to do what they should do, because the man has 4,256 hits, and that record will never be touched, not even close. But they are not allowing Pete, or they're not going to allow Pete to have the joy. And as you know, if you go way, way back, you know, the tragic loss of Bart Giamatti, the commissioner back then, you know, a lot of it was Pete put the stress on him with the gambling and the allegations and all of that. But I mean, Charlie Hustle to me is Charlie Hustle. And that was the other greatest time I ever had for my father was September 11th, 1985 on a 2-1 pitch from Eric Schau. I was working as a producer on the weekends. I was still in college on the weekends at Channel 5 in Cincinnati. And I had my dad at Riverfront, and he watched Pete break the record. And I got him a credential, which was cool. What wasn't cool is the press conference downstairs. They go, any questions? I hear, so Pete, what's next? And I was like, no way. That cannot be my fucking dad who just talked. So my dad asked this question. I'm like, oh, Dad. But, you know, Pete goes, I don't know. I'm going to keep getting hits. But yeah, he deserves to be. If it were another sport, he would be by now. Obviously, the baseball scandal in 1919 and all of that hurts Pete, but you can't argue with 4,256 hits, and you cannot argue with the way the guy played the game.
And he wasn't betting for them to lose. It's not like they were throwing the games. He was betting on his team to win.
No question. And if you are a gambler and you go and you put your money on whatever it is that you have the most knowledge of, and Pete knows if the left-hander's out and the wind's coming from the southeast at 8 miles an hour, and then the sun's going to go down at 5:04, like Pete knows that stuff. So he's going to take the Cardinals +2 on that night, if indeed he did bet on baseball. I don't think he ever bet on the Reds. I know he never bet on, you know, an opponent of the Reds, because he's way too competitive for that.
Yeah.
But you bet on what you know the best. I will tell you a funny story, because I love Pete. Got to meet him, you know, when I was young, and then when I was hosting Best Damn Sports Show, and then through my time around, you know, UFC pre-Bellator, and he signs autographs at the Mandalay Bay pretty much every day. And I go up and I talk to Pete, and I sit down with him, and he signs a picture to my dad, to my favorite fan, Ron, blah, 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 blah. And he's got his iPad right next to him. He's got the horse races on the iPad. And he's watching the horses, and I'm kind of chuckling to myself. And he leans in, Ryan. He goes, Mike, you know anything about the fights tomorrow? You got anything for me on the fights? I go, Pete, with those little gloves, I would never tell you to do anything, anytime on anybody, because all it takes is boom, one of those. But when Pete kind of looked at me to be his insider, I just cracked up inside. But, you know, I have 2 baseballs. I have Pete Rose, and I have Barry Larkin, because my grandmother babysat all the Larkin boys in Cincinnati, and they were all great athletes, as you know. And the ball that I have from Barry says, to my favorite babysitter, Betsy. And when my grandma Betsy passed, I said, I want the Larkin ball. And of course, I have Pete. So those are my 2 baseballs, and those are the ones I cherish the most.
Okay, this question
2 Cincinnati boys.
Yeah, this question was way down my list here, but what's your favorite piece of memorabilia?
My favorite piece of memorabilia. Wow. I think my favorite piece, I'm looking around my office right now. All right, I'm going to give you 2 answers. The first would be my jersey signed by the Olympic team, Michael Ruzioni. I have one with Chester Ruzioni, and then I have one with most of the 80 team. But I also have one when the pros played in Salt Lake, and I have all the Roenick and the Kachuk and all those guys. So those USA hockey jerseys are special to me. I spoke at a USA hockey symposium. My college teammate, Mark Tabram, runs the college education program. So those are extremely special to me. Most of my memorabilia, to be honest, is all made out to my son, because it's all personalized to Cole with the K, K-O-L-E. But what is the most meaningful to me, and I have a bunch of it here, I have flags and I have posters from the military. And back in the day, he's still a great American. A good buddy of mine, Johnny D, I call him Captain America, served in the Marines and in the FBI, and he was going overseas. He's like, Goldie, I'm here to deploy. I'm here to protect our country. And I would give a shout out, Ryan, to this battalion or that, and they would send me these gifts. That by far means the most to me, because those are the men and women that allow you and I to do what we're doing right now. Those mean everything, everything. And then I would say hockey-wise, other than for me, there's a jersey that Joe Thornton signed for Cole. Joe came to one of Cole's games at a Silver Stick tournament in San Jose, and Cole had a little sauce pass. It was beautiful, and they scored when Jumbo was there. And Jumbo signed the jersey, Cole, you look like me out there. Nice apple, your buddy Jumbo. And I'm like, who signs it like that? So that would be my favorite piece overall as our family is the one from Jumbo. That really is a personalized message to my son.
So you attended the University of Miami of Ohio.
No, Miami of Ohio.
Yes.
See?
And I was telling you the story how when I interviewed Milt Stiegel, and I'm like, oh my God, he went to the U. Oh, it's not the same. It's not the same university. But my question is, what did you take in that university? And tell us about that school.
Oh, that school was they call it the Harvard of the Midwest. I was excited. I almost went to West Point, to be honest with you. I had the congressional nomination. My dad was fired up about it. Now that I look at what I've done over the last 25 plus years, man, I'm getting freaking old. It wasn't really the way that I was supposed to go. And I do respect our military. And it was an honor just to be looked at, to play, and to be part of the Army. And they wanted me to play hockey and soccer there. But going to Miami was great for me. When I was in 8th grade, I watched them do the local news, and I watched the sportscaster read the teleprompter, Ryan. I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. So I went down there to play hockey. But during the summer, when I went down with my mom, I went to the radio station, WMUB, and I said, I'd like to get a job. I think I made $1.99 an hour or something, bored up, but I got right into it. So for me, Miami was special because I got into broadcasting right away. When I did cover, teams, they were Cincinnati-based teams, which is what I love. I interned at Channel 5 in Cincinnati. Ron Harper was there the same 4 years as I was. So our basketball team was blowing up at the time. And that was exciting. Goggin Ice Arena was amazing. And I could drive home to Grandma's house, and she could do my laundry every weekend. So Grandma Betsy bailed me out and did my laundry for me. Miami is a beautiful campus, Oxford, Ohio. It's about 45 minutes away from Cincinnati. It's a mid-major. It's definitely not the U, but a great education. And the good thing for me, Ryan, is early on I realized that it's about getting reps, much like yourself doing the podcast. And I was able to do independent studies. I was able to do student radio, student TV, intern at Channel 5, and then have a little meat on the bone when I went looking for jobs afterwards. And a buddy of mine, Doug Baylog, who ran the radio station, WOXY. And if you remember way back, Dustin Hoffman, the Rayman movie, the Homer Rock and Roll 97X. That was the radio station, and he helped me get my first job. And so Miami was great for me because it was close to home, especially Cincinnati, so I could get to Grandma. I had great opportunities to play hockey. I had great friends there, and it was a time that we drank a lot of beer. And one of my favorite stories in Miami is I go into the Ace Hardware, and this older woman, they probably owned this Ace Hardware in Oxford, Ryan, for 50 years. I go, ma'am, I'm looking for like a funnel and a tube. And like I'm being shy about it. Like she's not
making a beer bomb.
Son, she's like, oh, son, you're making a beer bomb. We just got these new ones. I got it for you. I got you. And she comes out, held like a 6-pack. And so, even the Ace Hardware people back in the day knew how to make a great beer bong. So Miami was great, and it set me up for success. And I think that's the most important part of going to college, not just what you learn in the book, but what you learn that you're going to take away and have a chance of being successful in what you love.
Totally not one of my questions, but since we're talking about grandma, what's the best food grandma ever made you?
Grilled cheese.
All right.
Oh my God, her grilled cheese was awesome. Grilled cheese and pickles. And I never knew why it was so good until one time I went in the kitchen and it was about a chunk of Velveeta this much and the butter was this much. And then I realized why it was so good. Well, my grandma Betsy, my mom lost her grandfather, her father, my grandpa Frank, when she was in high school. So my grandma had remarried. Grandpa Kelly was the same. He was grandpa to my brother and I. But when I was interning and then living in the summers in Cincinnati and Miami up in Oxford, I was going out with the boys. I was using my uncle's connections to get into all the bars down by the Ohio River. And I know that room stunk. And my schedule was going to work like 2:30, 3 o'clock, right? And grandma would always say, Michael, and I don't know what, I'm Michael Francis after my grandpa Frank, but Michael Ann, nobody's Ann, but Michael Ann, you want a grilled cheese? Well, Grandma, I want two. And I know that room was just a horrendous smell, but it's all right. I was her little Mike because her son, my uncle's Mike as well. So I'm always little Mike. And Grandma made some grilled cheese that is legendary. My roommates from college still talk about Grandma Betsy's grilled cheese.
Huh. See, I always look at my grandma. She makes the sweetest craft dinner. She adds like a block of cheese, extra, like a whole block of cheese, and stirs it until it's soft and dry.
Right?
Only grandma can make that shit.
That's exactly, and you know what? It might be a little Velveeta that she was throwing in there, so we might have a lot in common there.
There you go. We actually do have a lot in common with sports, and your wife is from BC.
Yep. My ex from BC, met her in Vancouver during the playoffs in 1995. I was with ESPN and was up there, did some Canucks games. And I remember the first round, it was the Blues and the Canucks, and Brendan Shanahan broke his ankle. And the Canucks ended up advancing, then played Chicago in the second round. I was living in Chicago at the time, and Kim was living in Vancouver. And later on, when I was the voice of the Red Wings, Shanny was traded there. And I said to Shanny, I go, I want to thank you. And he's like, Goldie, what are you talking about? I go, well, if you don't break your ankle in I don't have a couple more weeks to work my magic, and I don't have Cole and Kiera. So I just want to say thank you. I didn't have Cole and Kiera by then, but I always kind of joked with Shanny about that because that Blues team was stacked. And then when Shanny went down, the Canucks advanced. But man, that was such a great time for the Canucks too. And Dave Babbage, maybe the hairiest man in the history of life, but such a great guy.
Oh,
you
beauty.
got the retro hat going right now. Kirk McLean, Brett Hedican and I were texting the other day. I love Heddy. Good Minnesota boy, and he was great with you.
We'd love to have Hedican on. We actually had Kurt McLean on a couple times. So
yeah, Kirk. Yep, Kirk's great. Heddy's awesome, and he's a great broadcaster. He really is a great broadcaster. And we were texting back and forth, and I sent him the picture of my son and I on the gold medal game night. I think I might have sent it to you with me in my U.S. jersey and Cole in the Canada jersey. And Heddy's response was, that'll teach him not to root for the team in the country in which he was born. And Cole sitting right next to me. I go, Heddy's on my side. So it was fun. It was great. And I actually played on the first American team to ever play in a tournament in the Vancouver area when I was a peewee. It was in Abbotsford. We played at 4 rinks. It was cold as cold could be. Game 1, Team Ohio, 3-1 win over North Van. I'm pumped up. I had one of the goals. And I ended up billeting with the Sahat Chief boys. And in between games, we hadn't played Burnaby yet. We go to the Burnaby Winter Club, and they're taking figure skating. And I'm like, this is, I forgot about obviously my first day back in Michigan, but I'm thinking, oh, wow, this is a breeze, right? Well, we didn't score a goal the rest of the tournament. Burnaby beat us 14-0. Sahat Chief skated like Hedekin way before Hedekin was around. Skated like Paul Coffey, and it was the figure skating, knowing the edges. And Cliff Ronning was on the Burnaby team.
Yeah, he was.
That I played against. And then Cliffy was in Minnesota when I was there. So, we got our ass handed to us after that. And man, those rinks were cold. But it was kind of cool. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, Cliff Ronning's one of the guys we've met personally a few times. Never had him on the show. We actually haven't. We've tried to reach out as best we can. We haven't done much. But the Kurt McLean's been on. We've had Gino Ojek, Tony Tanti. Jesus, we've had all. We basically focused first on the Canucks. We would love all our Canucks and our prospects and everybody else. Darcy Rhoda, we just had on 2 days ago.
Nice. Now, you know what? I love seeing your hat because I grew up playing in North Olmsted, Ohio. We were Flyers colors. So I wore 16. I was born in 64. Do the math. Not only was it the Big Red Machine, but do the math with Bobby Clark and the Broad Street Bullies. And I was the captain. So I've been 16 my entire life. Cole's 16. And so we're orange and black. Well, we go back in the crazy V days when I was playing in that tournament and go to Cupolos or whatever it was, the sporting goods store. And I'm like, Mom, can I get these gloves? Because they're orange and black with the yellow stripe. But they're orange and black. I'm like, Mom, like these are going to work. And so I had my legit Canucks gloves that I wore from there through high school. And I still have them. And, they matched a little bit of yellow, just kind of added to it.
Oh, yeah. You got to send those up here to get them signed by somebody.
You got that right. The Canucks were one of the teams that I worked real closely with at the time. I actually, back in the Orca Bay days, I did some pay-per-views for the Canucks, and I did play-by-play. I did play-by-play with, it was
John Shorthouse.
Well, John Shorthouse was actually the host. Okay. And I did play-by-play with Ryan. And why is his name escaping me right now? But he was the ref in. He played the ref in the movie Miracle, and he's awesome. He's been around forever. But Shorty was the host for these pay-per-view games that we did.
Ryan Walters.
Yes, Ryan Walters. Yes, and Ryan was my partner. And then shortly thereafter, Jim Robson steps aside, and Shorty's still there, and I would see him all the time in my hockey days, but. Yeah, I actually not only did a lot of Canucks games just because Brian Engblom and I with ESPN were on the West Coast, but then being around there, I got to do it. And I did the Vancouver Voodoo. There was a kid named Doug Ass. Yeah, Doug Ass couldn't pull the trigger. And my cousin, my brother-in-law Johnny used to love that. Doug Ass couldn't pull the trigger. So I did the Voodoo games as well.
Holy, that's pretty crazy. You have a lot of ties to Vancouver.
I really do. It really is my favorite city in North America. There's no doubt about it. Maybe my favorite city in the world. And it's the family ties, of course, but it's also the professional things that I was able to experience. And I don't have to tell you, it's one of the most beautiful cities in the history of life. And especially when I went in 95, it's playoff time. All of a sudden you're in Stanley Park, you're going over the Lionsgate Bridge, down in Kitsilano at Malone's. I remember getting hooked on kokanee about 3 sips in, just barreling down kokanees. Remember Al Morganti? He was a reporter for ESPN back in the day, kind of, the man between the glass, if you will. He was kind of the Bob McKenzie in the U.S. back in the day. We're sitting at Malone's on Robson out on the deck, and we're banging down some kokanees, and we get about 3 or 4 in, and Al goes, "Whoa. This sure isn't Coors Light." I'm like, Al, it's Canadian beer, brother. They're not kidding. Kidding. We had a lot of fun. We spent a lot of time at Kitts Beach, and it's a special place. My daughter's up there right now. She's been with COVID hitting and her home away from home. Well, her home away from where she grew up here in Phoenix is New York City, and she was already up in Vancouver when COVID really hit North America, and of course, New York City, and she's been living in North Van since March. So it's almost been a year, and she loves it. So it's definitely home. It's definitely home, and always will be special.
So I hear you were quite the sniper in your college hockey days. You told me this stat.
I am. I lit it up more in high school than I did in college. I was okay in college. I did my work, but then these Canadian dudes who were like 28 years old, they're like, wait, maybe I should have gone and played juniors for a couple of years, because I was 17 years old when I went to college, because I've that horrible hockey birthday of November 24th. Horrible hockey birthdays, But I sniped, so I'm still the all-time leading goal scorer in North Olmsted, and our line is still 1, 2, and 3 in all-time scoring. Now, my brother and his line will always say, "Well, you played this crappy team and that crappy team and that crappy team." I'm like, bro, Todd, that they don't ask how, they ask how many, and I can't help it that Olmsted Falls or Rocky River wasn't good. I just know I went bar down, buddy. So just ease up, and. Cole doesn't believe I was ever any good, but I was.
Hey, and that's a true thing too. Like, the young kids never believed that you were any good. I give shit to the old guy in our building that used to play in like the dub, but he used to play WHL, but he's old now. Whatever it was called, it might have even been the WHL that went to the fucking NHL. But
right,
because he's 65. But I don't believe him. They didn't even have cameras back then. There's no proof he played.
Yeah, there was a kid named Gretzky who played in that WHA in Indianapolis at 19 years old. He ended up being all right.
Yeah.
And Bobby Hall. First man to make $1 million with the Jets back in the day, going to the WHA. That is one thing I did get to enjoy in the WHA, living in Cleveland. Yeah, the WHA. Yeah, it was first of all the Cleveland Crusaders. And our goaltender was Jerry Cheevers. Yep. And that was post, 72 in the Stanley Cup in Boston. I'll never forget that the legendary mask with all where the stitches would have been on the mask. And the backup was a guy named Bob Whidden, who lived right around the corner. And Whiddy's son was a goalie, played with my brother Todd. And Bob lived right next to my coach, Ian Cushnan. And we lost Crash. It'll be a year, in about a month. It'll be a year, February. Crash played for the 1958 Montreal Canadiens Stanley Cup championship team. His nose looked like the Mississippi River. Hey, he's in Don Cherry's. There you go. I like it. Yeah.
I busted my nose 3 times playing hockey.
There you go. And you know what? If you would have played against Coach Cushnan, you would have busted at 4 or 5 because he would have punched you. Yeah. So, yeah, the WHA was good. And then we had the Barons for a little bit. And I remember, Rick Dudley and Robbie Fatorik of the Cincinnati Stingers. So it was a fun time. The WHA was good for an Ohio kid. And then, of course, the Barons ended up kind of folding in with the North Stars. And Maruk and Milosh did some good things up there when Madonna was just a kid. But I got to be around the rink a lot, and that was very, very cool.
Somebody we interviewed actually told us that Bobby Hall said he wants to play for $1 million and never expected him to match that offer. And that's the only reason he ended up going to the Jets.
Yeah, I believe that. And here's a great story. Bart Hall, as you know, there's Vancouver ties, and Bart was one of the all-time leading rushers at Boise State. He was, I want to say, 6th or 7th pick overall, picked by the BC Lions in the CFL, and he blew his knee out, and he never really got to play football in the CFL the way he would have. Now, he's the youngest, and everybody will tell you that Bart, of all the boys, is the best athlete. Now, if you've got Brett and everybody in front of you, and Bart was a good hockey player, but I could see why, he kind of went to football. Although we did play in an alumni game together, and Hully kept missing the net. I'm like, Michael Jordan's kid wouldn't miss a free throw. Hully hit the net. So Bart lived with me. Bart lived with me for a couple of years, helped me coach Cole when he was a mite. And he was just a great guy. And so Cole's doing this book report, my son, on Bart. And Cole comes running out. He's like, Coach Bott, did you know your brothers used to beat you up whenever you guys played basketball? And Bart goes, yeah, Cole, I was there. If you're looking for a mug, perhaps a hoodie, head on over to IOnlyTouchGreatness.com.
Hey. Okay, Hazy and T, part 2. That was a quick commercial break for our sponsors. We're back. We got Mike Goldberg coming back right now. If you like what we're doing, keep hitting that subscribe button. Okay.
All right, brother.
Yeah, no, my fucking buddies sold me this brand new laptop when I started. We only just started the podcast in June. So we've been going since June, and he sells me this fucking laptop that after 10 episodes, I got to delete 10 episodes off there because there's not enough memory.
Oh, fuck.
So I had to move them all over to my memory stick and take a couple seconds. But we're back recording right now. This is part two.
Good. There you go.
Did you play any other sports growing up other than hockey?
Yeah, I played soccer. I played soccer. I was a decent soccer player. I actually scored a lot of goals early and then got sick of running. I was like, this is stupid. I like skating and scoring was cool, but running, I was like this. So I became a keeper and actually played at a high level. And West Point, when they first came after me, it was to play soccer and to be a keeper at the military academy. So I was a keeper in soccer and a centerman in hockey. Other than that, that was about it. And nowadays, we always tell these kids, try to play as many sports as you can, but it's so darn competitive, as you know, and you have to work so hard in between seasons if you're going to make that next team, or AA, AAA, whatever it is, that Cole, my son, pretty much played hockey, and that was about it. A little bit of baseball here and there, but I was a keeper in soccer. And hockey was number one. I did love playing soccer though, and I did like being a keeper. And my nickname was Fish, as in Goldberg, Goldfish. They said I always played great in the rain, but I've always been Goldie and always will be. Well, I think a lot of people, if somebody said Mike Goldberg or Mike, so when people call me Mike, I kind of like, oh, that's who you're talking to. Because my buddies, my close friends, either like my line mates are like Michael. Because like Coach Cushing used to do that, or Mom, or, even my brother, or Goldie. I don't get Mike very often, so I speak on a mic a lot, but that's about it.
Yeah, you should get the chants, like the Goldberg chants. Like I asked you, I thought because Bill Goldberg, the wrestler, has a brother named Mike Goldberg. So when we were doing our homework, trying to get the questions together, I was like, holy shit, this guy's Mike. Is Mike Goldberg is Bill Goldberg's little brother.
When I lived in Georgia, Ryan, I got asked that every time I went somewhere because I was at the age where they were still carding me to get beer. And then they'd see Goldberg. You're related to the wrestler? No, because he played football at, University of Georgia. And I'd always say, yeah, he's my little brother. Well, finally at a charity event years later in Phoenix for Jared Allen's military foundation, I met Bill. And I walked right up and he knew me and I knew him. And I'm like, it is about time. I go, I feel like I've known you forever. Goldie. And he goes, Goldie, I feel like I've known you forever. And we had a great time, had a couple beers together and chatted. And I will tell you what, Ryan, that is one big dude. Oh my God. Like he's Brock Lesnar big. Like maybe like he is a giant. Put his arm around me. I'm like, wow, I'm glad we might be related because I would not want to be on your bad side. But a super cool dude. Super cool dude. And maybe we are related. Who knows? Yeah,
you never know. You never know.
Right?
You did a lot before the UFC, like Best Damn Sports Show, which I loved as a kid. You did some Arizona Cardinals games, also Detroit, Minnesota hockey games. Which one was your favorite?
Hockey, for sure. Yeah,
okay.
Hockey. I did 800 or 900 games in the NHL. Doing it at the network level was amazing. I remember being in Calgary and having a double overtime game 7 that I called for ESPN. And my hero growing up is a broadcaster, and he was a flyer, by the way, is Bill Clement. My favorite duo was always Thorny and Clement. My first ever NHL game on ESPN was Anaheim at San Jose with Bill Clement. And my producer, Bruce Connell. And if you ever watched the UFC, and Brucey, may he rest in peace, lost him way too young. Tonight Show produced by Bruce Connell, direct. So Brucey's the one who got me in to mixed martial arts back in the day, UFC. And now I work with his son, Tyler, on Bellator. So we keep it in the family. I always say I did all the normal sports before I got into guys and girls in a cage fighting in their underwear. I did a lot of normal stuff, but I had the opportunity to call some very, very special games. Being in Detroit the year that they won their first Stanley Cup in 42 years, December 26th, Boxing Day, back in, it would have been 96, Sergei Fedorov against the Capitals. They play it every year. It's awesome. Sergei Fedorov against the Capitals. Nobody wanted to go to work on Boxing Day. Now they don't even let the guys play on the 26th. We go to the rink. It's a day game against the Caps. Sergei scores again. Long story short, 5-4 win in overtime for the Wings. Fedorov with all 5 goals. And watching the Russian 5 before Vladimir Konstantinov was in that horrible accident right after they won the Cup, watching them play was just, it was mind-boggling. It was just amazing to be able to witness that. And even my son, it was kind of cool. Cole said the other day, Dad, I watched the Russian 5 again, because we went to the outdoor game at Michigan Stadium, that school up north that I do not like, but it was a hockey game. And at the alumni game, I still had my buddies with the Red Wings. I walked through that locker room. It was a Hall of Fame locker room. And Vladdy was there. Konstantinov was there, the wheelchair, but he was there. And obviously Papa Bear was there. Kozlov was there. Igor was there. Sergei was there. It was unbelievable. And Iggy's, seeing Iggy coaching in the World Juniors was crazy. And it was just a really special thing to watch. I called the revenge fight, Darren McCarty on Claude Lemieux. Yeah. Partner, Mickey Redmond would always have a smoke. And I was winning in between periods. He'd go downstairs to do the interviews, Ryan. And so once in a while, Mick, because he's a vet, he'd leave with like 7 minutes left in the period. I'm like, all right. Well, the one time he was caught in the stairs is when, actually it was Larionov and Forsberg who started it. Then D-Mac came and got Lemieux and I mean, just pummeled him, dragged him to the spot on the boards where he cross-checked Draper and broke his jaw. Blood on it. And then
blood on the boards.
You got it. And then Juan Vernon. And it's like, so I got to call that. I called the last ever goal scored against Patrick Waugh by Andrew Brunette in 2003. The Minnesota Wild, in fact, the only team to come back from a 3-1 deficit twice in the same playoff year, did it against the Canucks in the second round.
Well, let's not remind me.
To be there and call that, I know. Well, don't remind me of Bieksa bouncing it 8 times against the Sharks either, but that's okay. That was special, but I was the sideline reporter for the Chicago Bulls from 89 to 94 when I went to the network. And I got to be around the greatest of all time on a daily basis and watch his magic. And there's nobody better than Michael Jordan, nobody better than Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And I knew I was experiencing something very special. And I did play-by-play in college football and NFL sidelines and the Cardinal. I mean, I've been so blessed to do so many cool things, but being that sideline guy for the Bulls, that was off the charts. That was off the charts. I remember Ahmad Rashad said to me one time, he goes, Goldie, like, you're me for the Bulls. And I go, wow, I wouldn't go that far, but I appreciate it. And then I saw Michael back when I was still living in Chicago. I was at the network. He came back from baseball. And I went into the locker room, went to see Harp, and Michael Jordan, I swear to God, he asked me what I was doing. And I said, Michael, I'm doing play-by-play for ESPN now. And he goes, Goldie, I always knew you weren't going to be doing that sideline stuff your whole life. I knew you were going to excel. Congratulations. And I was like, wow, Michael Jordan just said that to me. So that was incredible. That was a great moment. Man, I was there when Starks, jammed over. I mean, those Knicks series were incredible. And now I live in Phoenix, where John Paxson hit the shot against Charles and the boys in Game 6 for the third title. And
also good
great
Steve
times.
Nash. Steve Nash.
Absolutely. Nash came in and he was the next Paxson. And he got his. And that I know you watched it. That documentary was not only because it was the Bulls, but that was one of the best sports documentaries I've ever watched in my life. ever.
It
was
definitely
amazing.
was, and now that kind of set the bar. Now everybody wants to do a sports documentary. You've got like 10 more coming this year. I mean, Tigers is doing that thing right now. I haven't seen the Tiger yet, but well, yeah, everybody's trying to do a sports documentary because of how that set the bar.
For sure.
And
for sure. And, you know, HBO over the years, as you know, and ESPN, the 30 for 30s, they've always done an incredible job. But it just, the storyline that went along with it, just, they just nailed it. My favorite parts are when, like, Michael, like the Gary Payton quote, where Michael would look at the iPad and Payton would, the glove, what he was wearing me down? Come on, Gary. That's just silliness. And then he'd go on from there.
yeah.
But Michael was the perfect gentleman, and I didn't bother him every day because I knew better. And he gave me this interview right after the whole Atlantic City gambling thing, the Knicks series, when he was up there with his pops.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what question I asked, Ryan. It was like him thanking me for not kind of being in his face every day, because I was there every day. And John Paxson and I used to have this little joke. We'd go for pregame, because I always have to do the pregame, you know. And so kind of like Murph, kind of like I was the Murph back then. I was the Dan Murphy. Murph's a good buddy of mine.
Oh,
and,
yes.
Absolutely.
He knows me as a Don Cherry guy because I dress up as Don Cherry and go to all the Canuck games.
Really?
Oh, dude, that. You should hang on. Pump the brakes there 1 sec. I'll show you this.
I got to see this. Wow! So how good is that?
We got this one. This is my Christmas suit with the. You got to make sure you have the poppy.
No question.
We got the Canada one.
Love it.
And then this one he wore during the Vegas finals.
I remember that. Oh my God, that's awesome. That's so cool.
It started with the Halloween costume. I won $500 at the local bar, and then I'm like, okay, the Canucks play Chicago on Halloween. I might as well wear it for Halloween night to my season tickets. And I went down there and boom, I was on the news. I was all over TV. They had me cranking the siren before the game dressed as Don Cherry.
Oh, that's great.
And then he got fired. And now I'm like, they tell me not to wear it, but they're not stopping me.
No, come on. It's Grapes, man. He's a legend. Yeah. He's a legend. So my coach that I was telling you about, Ian Cushnan, is in Grapes' book. Because he fought Grapes. So in Don Cherry's book, he mentions Ian Cushnan, Crash Cushnan, who was my coach growing up. Yeah. So small world. So I was doing the Murph thing, but I would always have this like gig with the Bulls. I'd always go to Paxson. Can I get a pregame? And he's a good, you know, Dayton, Ohio kid. I'm from Cincinnati. And he'd go, Goldie, did you ask Michael? I go, no. I was scared. He goes, you asked Scotty? Scotty said no. Well, what about Horace? Well, Scotty told Horace to say no. And as you know from, like, they were frickin' frack, right? It's like, Horace, we're leaving. Boom, Horace had to go. He goes, Goldie, why don't you get Cartwright? I'm like, on my arm. It's just like, oh, he's so tall and he spits on me. And then we'd laugh. And then I'd do my pregame interview with my man, John Paxson. But I really have, Ryan. I've been, even pre-MMA, I've been so incredibly blessed to be around not just hockey, but, you know, all sports, to be there when Pete Rose broke the record, to guest hosting Best Damn Sports Show, period. And to see Michael Jordan do what he did, to see Payne Stewart on a Sunday in the PGA Championship in his Bears knickers, win in Chicago up at Kemper Lakes. And just incredible. And then Bruce Connell being one of my producers at ESPN, his family, you know, Concom, they were doing the UFC. All of a sudden, Bruce Beck wasn't doing it anymore. Goldie, I got a gig for you. It's in Japan. Little did I know that would be the thing that would define my career. The UFC for almost 20 years, and now Bellator. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my next question. Well, a couple of things I've jotted down here as we were talking. Darren McCarty. We've had him on the show, so he's a good friend of the show. He also has his own podcast, and we broke down that whole thing frame by frame where he smashes the face into the boards. So that was a pretty good one. Okay, so December 1997, you made your UFC debut in Japan. Describe Japan and atmosphere? Because I know the wrestlers always tell us that Japan, you go fight over in New Japan Wrestling, and it's amazing. But also, how was your first event?
So Brucey said to me, I'd done the Red Wings, and I was actually in Vancouver. That's kind of the time when I was in and out of Vancouver and doing some Canucks games. Goldie, I got a gig for you. It's in Japan. You got to take a jiu-jitsu class. Da, 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 da. And they said, all right, land and you get on the Shinkansen and go to Shin Yokohama, which was about an hour or so out of Tokyo. And I'm like, they put me in first class. I'm all fired up. So I actually flew from Vancouver to Tokyo, to Narita. And I get out of the plane, and all of a sudden I realized that there wasn't like S-H-I-N. I didn't even know how to spell Shinkansen in English, let alone. And I'm like, whoa, well, it's the bullet train. And it was awesome. So I go zooming in, and I didn't know, I overpacked. And I go into the hotel, and the first person I met in mixed martial arts, the true sport, is Elaine McCarthy, John McCarthy's wife. She was the event coordinator back in the day for SEG. And the first thing she taught me is that R is H in Portuguese. It's Royce Gracie. It's not Royce Gracie. It's Royce Gracie. So that's the first thing she taught me. And then Jeff Blatnick, the Olympic gold medalist, was my partner. And my broadcast partner, and Big John was the ref. And all of a sudden, Big John's laying on the ground in this big conference room. He's like, come here, kid. I'll show you guard, half guard. And I'm like, yo, whoa. We just met. We haven't had any drinks. I'm a hockey player. I'm definitely not going north-south. Like, why are we snuggling? He's like, wait a second. And so he shows me this. And the boss walked by, Bob Myrowitz at the time while I was doing it. So I had the gig. The crazy part about Japan is they do love the wrestling and they're loud. But the Japanese crowd for martial arts is like going to Wimbledon. It's like going to a golf tournament. It's the golf clap.
Oh, really? It
was crazy, Ryan. It was the golf clap. And so you're there and everybody knows what's going on, except me, pretty much. But it was quiet. So it was really weird at the time. And I let Blatz do the heavy lifting, and I had enthusiasm. I did my homework and tell the stories. And Randy Couture was in the main event, and he beat Maurice Smith to become the heavyweight champion. Frank Shamrock made his debut and armbarred Kevin Jackson, an Olympic gold medalist from Michigan State, in about 19 seconds. And we spent some time in Roppongi, and that's one of my favorite places in the world. But it was a crazy experience, but one I'll never forget. I've been back to Japan many times since, and I love going over there because of the love of martial arts and the excitement. We had a great bellator there last year, New Year's Eve, and Fedor fought, and so everybody's going just bonkers. But it was interesting, and it was a different experience. If you would have told me back then that this is what I was going to be defined for, if you will, and that I would have the opportunity eventually to sit alongside with Joe Rogan and bring a renegade sport into the mainstream and tell the story and go on the ride with the entire world and these fighters as they become legit, I would have said, you're absolutely crazy. I was just happy to have some sake and go to Japan and hang out with Brucey. And it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. December 21st, 1997. My niece, Jordan, was born on December 21st, many years later, but we always call each other UFC buddy. And because of that date. And it was a great trip, and Blatz took good care of me, and another one who we lost way too young. But what a great story Jeff Blatnick was, cancer survivor, and then went on to win a gold medal in the Olympics in wrestling in Los Angeles. It was special. And Randy and I are still very close to this day. And then my 100th UFC was Randy and Brock. And so just the irony of that, my first being Randy winning, and then having Randy fight Brock, years later, that being the 100th time I did one, was pretty incredible as well.
Being that these guys are about 5 minutes away from me in Port Moody, can you tell us something good about the Bellator fighters, our Gibsons?
I can tell you something great about them. I called Lance's fight in the UFC. It was, the move to Bellator was really cool in a lot of ways because it became generational. Because now all of a sudden, his wife, Julia Budd, is a Bellator champion, and here's Lance.
And Junior.
And then Douglas, and Junior fighting now. And here's Douglas Lima coming in with his brother Diego, and I called Diego's fight. And Shinzo Machida is fighting at Madison Square Garden, and I called Lyoto's fight. And then Rory McDonald, the good BC boy. Rory comes over, and Rory's fighting in Bellator for titles, and I called Rory's first fight. I called that legendary fight in Vancouver against Carlos Condit.
Yeah.
Where Rory had him until about 7 seconds left when Condit finally just smashed him in the fights against Robbie Lawler. Julia Budd is one of the sweetest human beings you will ever meet in your life. And she is a physical specimen. She is a beast. Lance is a great trainer, and it's not always easy to have, a husband and wife team like that, but they do it. They do a great job with it. Junior will sit there and say that, his stepmom beats him up every day because she is that tough, but Lance Jr.'s got a ton of talent, and we had a natural connection right away because of BC, because of my background, calling Lance's fights. I mean, I called Antonio McKee's fights, now AJ McKee's, fighting. I guess the theme here is I'm getting really old, but but they really are class acts. And the thing that it wasn't Julia's greatest moment when Chris Cyborg finished her, but if you remember that Bellator fight when Chris won the championship, she finished Julia right in front of Lance and Lance Jr. And just like stand and move, and just the tears started to come out of Lance's eyes and Junior's, and it just was. It was a tough time for them, but it was a cool show of love and emotion because they were all so heartbroken that she got caught. Now, I want the rematch between Nunes and Cyborg, because if anybody tells me that Amanda Nunes beat the crap out of Chris Cyborg, they're stupid, because Amanda Nunes was great that night and she caught her. There's no such thing as a lucky punch. I always say there's a fortunate connection. That doesn't mean Amanda couldn't beat her again, but I'd love to see it. But losing to Chris Cyborg is, there's no shame in that. But Julia is the sweetest of the sweet. She's as good as they come, and she's a great fighter and a better human being. And being the typical BC girl, man, and being around Lance and Lance Jr., she really is a pleasure. She lights up a room when she walks in. She's awesome.
Yeah, Lance was actually our very first day we ever opened up the podcast. I reached out to all the people locally that I thought I could just do locally, and Lance replied, "Great fucking guy," and
he is.
And I think personally to myself how much I've come this far from. Whether we now actually have a good mic and we have good cameras now. we had them on when we had our fucking shitty laptop mic, and
absolutely.
We're doing all this stuff because we were learning as we went. And I've been a big fan of all the Gibsons for a long time.
They're awesome, and I love Rory because Rory came on the scene as the first fighter who grew up a mixed martial artist, who walked into the gym that first day and trained in all the disciplines. And he was the new breed, and he had great success. And I'll never forget one of the conversations that I had with his trainers back in the day from Kelowna. And obviously he moved to Montreal and with Faraz Sahabi, but he's always stayed tight to his BC connections and his first coach. And he said for a long, long time, Rory was the nail. And it's not easy being the nail. Eventually, he became the hammer. But you have a true champion in the making when the kid was young and the kid was the nail and he kept showing up at the gym every day. And I have a lot of admiration for Rory McDonald and everything that he's achieved. And he was at 16, 17 years old, the first of that next breed. And now everybody does everything. It's not the wrestler learning to box or the boxer learning to submit. It is a true mixed martial artist from top to bottom, and Rory McDonald was the start of that. So you go to BC from the Buds to the Gibsons to Rory, and Lance Jr. is going to have a hell of a career. He's incredibly talented. He's obviously one of our Bellator fighters. Julia still has a lot of fight left in her. BC is well represented. There's no question about it.
That's for sure. I like to hear that. I read somewhere that you got an offer from WWE.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Can you tell us that story?
I was absolutely honored because I'm a Hulk guy. Back in the day, man, I remember, you pay this, you pay that, you get the kegger, and we watched, WrestleMania 1.
Yeah.
And Hulk Hogan was the man. Like, Hulkamaniacs, take your vitamins. You rip the shirt off. And so I was a big Hulk man. And as far as like television production, the WWE, that is like a Super Bowl production all the time. And then WrestleMania, it's like 3 Super Bowls. And so I was absolutely honored that they reached out to me and offered me, a really good deal to go and do Monday Night Raw and talk to him a lot. And at the end of the day, Rogan kept saying, Goldie, you're gonna go do porn? And I go, no, John, I'm gonna go do wrestling. Come on, Goldie. And Dana and Lorenzo called me in the 11th hour and said, stay here and, we don't want you to go. And my big thing with that, Ryan, was the WWE was already established. And I knew it would have been a great, great thing. And I would have loved to have the opportunity to work with those guys. But I had been on that boat for so long in these little cities with the UFC, and we hadn't hit that big port yet. And I wanted to stay on that journey. As I've gotten older, I realized why they say the journey is more meaningful than the destination. And I'd just been in it so long, and we were so close to nailing it and the Ultimate Fighter and all of that coming along at that time that I ended up in the 11th hour not taking the WWE offer. And Vince McMahon actually left me a message that I wish I would have saved. Vince McMahon, I think you owe our senior producer an explanation of why you didn't take the deal. And I was like, whoa.
You sound like him.
Dude, I was like, wow, this is cool. I played it for Dana. And that was one of the times Dana, he was pretty fired up about that. But I have a ton of respect for those guys and what they do and great athletes. But I remember back in the day when I was in Sarasota, of course, Hulk's from Tampa. They were doing a show, and I'm interviewing Hulk Hogan. And he's talking normal like you and I. Like, yeah, we're going to do the show, Mike, and it's going to be great. And I go, Hulk, sir, I just can't believe that I'm about to finish this interview with you, and there's no Hulkamania. And he goes, I'll tell you what, me and Mike. And I jumped out of my chair. I was like, damn. And he went into it. It was beautiful. And it was awesome. But yeah, I almost went to the WWE. There was a signing bonus that was offered, not as much as, Wikipedia says now, but, sometimes the story is better than the truth. But yeah, I was days away. I was supposed to start that next Monday, and ended up, we had a show on Spike because the WWE was leaving Spike to go to USA, and the UFC was going to Spike, and I stayed with the UFC.
Jeez. I mean, Hogan was always my favorite, and then I'd probably say Bret Hart because he's Canadian. And then it would easily be Kurt Angle as my next. And like I sent you today, we just interviewed Kurt Angle on Tuesday. So the guy's a beauty.
He is beauty. And he's legit. I mean, he's legit. And for me, Macho Man was always great, because he and Hulk would go at it all the time. But the guy I liked the most overall was Mean Gene. I'll tell you what, Mean Gene. And you probably know this as a hockey guy, but Gene's son, Todd Okerlund, was on the 1984 U.S. Olympic hockey team. For real.
It was also a play-by-play.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's Gene. That's Mean Gene's son.
Yep. Todd Okerlund.
You heard that here first.
There you go. And when I was working in Sarasota, Mean Gene lived down in Sarasota. I'd see him at Blueberry Hill all the time on Siesta Key. But that dude, I mean, as a TV guy, Mean Gene's awesome. And that was one of the reasons I almost win as well, was my admiration for Gene Okerlund, and just as overall as a broadcaster and being able to play that role, man. He was, you're talking about Don Cherry earlier. I mean, that's the guy who could play the role.
Yeah.
And the real guy who's the genius, in my mind, when you talk about greats, is actually Ron McClain. because you got to be able to set grapes up in the right way. And there is no better quarterback in my mind than Ron McLean. And
you also got to be able to babysit him.
Oh, you think a little bit? Yeah. But I mean, even in the U.S., we would just wait, dun 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 dun, the coach's corner, and I mean, the nation would stop, and so would a bunch of us Americans, and it was awesome. It was awesome.
My Don Cherry outfit, Kurt McLean, I saw him at a Canuck game one night while I was dressed up as it before all the podcast shit and all that stuff. And Kurt's like, hey, you come over here. I need to get a picture with you. He calls me over. He takes this picture with me. And he's like, I'm sending this to Ron McLean right now. And he sent it to Ron McLean. I guess when I had him on the podcast, he told us that, Grape's actually seen it. And side note there, Don Cherry's daughter did an event with the Vancouver Giants, which is our WHL team. And she was there, and she showed me that she's like, look, we're taking a picture together, and we're going to send this picture to my dad right now. So
how good is that?
So I've been awesome. That close to Don. He was supposed to be at that event that I met the daughter. But I don't even know the situation, but he didn't end up being there, but he ended up being in Victoria the next night. Like, Jesus, you're killing me, Don. I've been chasing him my whole life.
That is so cool, though. I remember when they came down when I was doing the Red Wings, and hockey night was down at the Joe, and McLean and Grapes were, set up to do their thing. And I went to say hello to Ron McLean. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's right. And, oh God, it's so much fun, man. So much fun. That was just an amazing year. But Ron said, Mike, you're doing a really nice job. And I was like, what? Ron McLean's team's the Red Wings. Yeah. And so he's like, I watch you on the satellite every night. You're doing a really nice job. I mean, coming in after Dave Strader, wasn't easy. And you Strades again, man. This world, you don't understand how we lose great people at a young age. But Strades was such a class act and really helped me a lot making the transition. And he and Mickey had been together for so long. And Ron McLean's like, yeah, I've been watching you a lot. You're doing a good job, kid. And I'm like, whoa, thank you, Ron. It was cool.
What's your favorite venue you've ever been in or broadcasted from? Because you've done your hockeys and you've done all these things, UFCs, maybe Dubai, or like what's your favorite venue?
I would say my favorite venue of all of them, I definitely in hockey would have to go with the Joe. It just was a special place. My favorite venue for longevity is Chicago Stadium, the Madhouse on Madison.
Yeah.
And I watched the Blackhawks go to the Stanley Cup Finals. They got swept by Mario and the boys, but they went to the finals with JR and Shelley and Suter and, Eddie the Eagle. And so Chicago Stadium overall would be my favorite venue. Some of my favorite moments were looking around at 80,000 people in Sky Dome. 80,000 people to watch these two dudes in a cage. And that's when Mark Hominick had that hematoma that just got lit up by Jose Aldo. And I remember Joe and I just going, wow, what is going on, man? Like, this is crazy. So Sky Dome was always special to me. I always loved going to Sky Dome. I always loved going to the Garage. It'd always be the Garage to me.
Yeah.
I did a lot of things out of the Garage. And Montreal is special. And the way that they were for GSP was just as much support as I've ever seen for an athlete in any occasion at any time. Those were just special times to watch him fight, inside the Bell Center at the time. And, then obviously Molson and, all the different names.
Yeah.
And I love going to Ireland. Ireland is like, that's my place, man. Because in Ireland, they tell me I'm a fucking legend. Are you a fucking legend? Can I get you a jammy? Fucking legend, want a Guinness? Can I get a photo?
Over a couple beers.
Yeah, right. And I'm my mom's side full on Irish, so don't let the last name totally fool you. That's why Michael Francis. I love going there. They're so into the fights. They start singing "Zombie" and from the Cranberries, and it's awesome. But my favorite venue, if I had to pick one, overall would be Chicago Stadium. The favorite place that I've done fights would be, I would say, Ireland. It was surreal to be in Abu Dhabi because they put up the outdoor arena in 3 days and then tore it down because they have so much money there. Anything in Japan is special, and everything in Canada is special. It really is. My love for hockey and then my ability not only to go and call hockey games up there, Ryan, but do MMA events with those crazy crowds was absolutely unbelievable. I did make one mistake though when I was Brian Engblom, who of course played for the Canadians. He was the young kid on those great teams. We go up after he and I had called a Montreal game, and it was the Molson Center then. And one of the alumni there, he's like, "Goldie, can I get you a beer?" And I go, "Yeah, I'll grab a blue."
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Brian looked at me, and I'm like, yeah, Molson Blue. And they just started laughing. I'm like, "Oh, am I that dumb?" And I was. Obviously, I was that dumb. But yeah, that when the crowd is into it, that's when I enjoy it the most. And honestly, when I don't have to talk, that is when I know the moments are the most special because the crowd takes over. I remember Conor McGregor, Madison Square Garden, when Conor McGregor put 12,000 people in Madison Square Garden for the weigh-ins, not for the fight, for the weigh-ins. I thought we were in Dublin. I really did. I'm like, wait, when did we get to Dublin? It was absolutely crazy. And so being at MSG, I've called college basketball out of there, called UFC, called bellator out of there, I've called hockey out of there. It truly is the world's most famous arena. I know I gave you a lot, but those are the special ones. But the Garage is on the list. The Garage is definitely on the list.
A lot of people always say Madison Square Garden for obvious reasons. You brought up the Chicago. That's not the United Center, is it?
Well, no, the United Center was
the
great.
old stadium. The old stadium.
Correct.
Okay.
The United Center is the house that Michael built, like I like to say.
Yeah.
And the two statues are Michael and Bobby Hall.
Yep.
That are in front. But the first title, when I was first in Chicago, they were still at the Madhouse on Madison, right across the street at the old Chicago Stadium, much like the old Forum and much like Maple Leaf Garden and all the historic buildings back in the day. But Boston Garden, but before it was the TD Arena or whatever sponsor it has today. And just being in that atmosphere was just so cool. And then I'd go as a fan on Sundays, Ryan, and go to Blackhawks games, and you'd walk up the steps and your feet would stick to the stairs because there's so much beer there. It's just sticky. And Chicago Stadium, the national anthem, Wayne Messmer, back in the day before he went and worked on the other side of town with the Chicago Wolves, Wayne Messmer's national anthem at Chicago Stadium and at the United Center, nothing better in sports than a national anthem at Chicago Stadium and then at the United Center for a Blackhawks game. That I will tell you.
I've actually been to the United Center. I saw the Toronto Maple Leafs play Chicago. My family's lived in Chicago for many years. So
there you go.
They took me to the United Center. I ended up getting Curtis Joseph's autograph because I was sitting so close. So that was pretty awesome, man. I just remember it's such a beautiful building. The neighborhood is scary.
Really scary.
My uncle was like, yeah, we're locking the doors and we're not stopping at any lights. Like,
yeah, Joe Louis Arena was pretty close to that too.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, let's get back to the suburbs. It was a little
scary.
You didn't stop at the lights. You kind of rolled through them until you got home.
Yeah, that's what Uncle always told us. We were too young. we were too young to know that, but he was always like, "Yeah, okay, kids, we're not stopping at this light. Tuck and roll if you had to. Put your head down." What was the favorite fight you ever called?
My favorite fight that I have ever called, man. It may be Anderson Silva, Vitor Belfort, when Anderson kicked Vitor in the face. And I love Vitor, so it was crazy, and then Lyoto did the same thing to Randy years later. that was a special moment. The battles between Hendo and Shogun were off the charts. Connor early on in Boston and the crowd that he used to bring was incredible. George the same way. Man, Diego Sanchez going toe to toe, biting down on the mouthpiece every single fight. Gilbert Melendez, and so but I think the greatest moment that I experienced was UFC 199 in the Forum. It was the night after Muhammad Ali had passed, and his son-in-law is actually a mixed martial artist, and he was on the card. And the main event was Michael Bisping and Luke Rockhold. And Michael was at his 27th. It was his 27th UFC fight after winning season 3 of The Ultimate Fighter.
Yes, of course.
And he knocked out Luke Rockhold right in front of Joe and I. And that's that famous meme that you always see with Joe and I going crazy.
Yeah.
That's from that night. That's from that night. So that would be the seminal moment in which I experienced where Joe and I were like, wow. And when Weidman caught Anderson was pretty crazy as well. But yeah, it was that was the moment for me because of the storyline, because Michael coming in on late notice, but Michael had earned his spot years earlier and was able to take Luke out that night. That was a special one. My favorite fighter to call though was Anderson for sure. And now we've got young guys in Bellator, like this kid AJ McKee, and you got Michael Venom Page. I mean, we got some studs. Like Michael Venom Page and his body reminds me of Anderson Silva, but Anderson was my guy. Very, very close with BJ Penn over the years. Very close with Baby J. Love that guy. And those were the big ones. Those were the big ones. I think when Randy Couture came back and beat Tim Sylvia in Columbus. I'm from Ohio. We talked about that. It was the first time we had ever been in Ohio. So it's like a home game, and it's my guy from my first ever UFC experience coming back out of retirement and wins the heavyweight title again. And the best part or the worst part of that is Randy came right out, as you know, Ryan, and he popped him right away, and I'm doing the fucking clock promo. And it's like, oh, shit, like, tonight's clock, presented by Nylabone Dog Shoes, whatever it was, right? And so that was a good one. I almost felt at the end of that fight, because the crowd started counting down in the 5th, 10, 9. And I almost felt, and I always joke with one of my mentors in the business, George Greenberg from Fox, I almost wanted to say, do you believe in miracles? And George always said, it's good that you didn't say that. I go,
because of the Olympics.
Yeah, of course. Al Michaels, of course.
Yeah. I got maybe 7 or 8 more questions. They're all short answer ones. Can we run through these? I don't want to take your whole Friday night.
Nah, I'm good. Let's do it.
Okay. If you could sit down for dinner with anybody, who would it be?
If I could sit down for dinner with anybody. Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods.
It'd be Tiger Woods. It'd be Tiger Woods because I've experienced many. Well, there aren't many like him with the competitive nature. He went through his trials and tribulations, much like Michael Jordan did back in the day. I would love to sit down and talk to Tiger Woods. That would be an absolute honor. I would love to sit down and talk to Tiger Woods. That would be my guy as an athlete. The Rock I've met on occasion, but not spent a lot of time with. But yeah, I'd have to say it would be Tiger Woods.
Fucking dog just farted right in my face. I had to push the chair away, like, get the fuck away from me. My answer to sit down with anybody would be Hulk Hogan or GSP. Or GSP.
Yeah, which I've been blessed to spend time with both.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Your favorite sports franchise? I'm going to guess after learning all this about you tonight, you're going to say a Cincinnati team.
Well, I will say old school Reds and Boomer Esiason Bengals, but by far my favorite sports franchise are the San Jose Sharks.
Okay.
I am more into the San Jose Sharks than any team I've ever been into. And the reason I became a Sharks fan is Drew Remenda, who did the Sharks forever, was doing Edmonton. Everybody in Canada knows who Drew is. Drew is a martial artist. And so when I was going through the hockey at morning skate, Drew and I would actually talk MMA. Well, a couple of years later, Drew hits me up, and it was the Conor McGregor fight. It might have even been like UFC 200. It was a huge fight, and like a day notice. And Drew hits me, goes, Joe Thornton and some of the boys want to come to the fight. Can you make it happen? I'm like, I'm going to do everything I can. And ended up making it happen. And it was Jason Demers. It was Logan Couture. It was Pabs, Bernsey, and it was Jumbo. And Drew was like, we're going to pay you back in like the Sharks way. And so was Joe. Joe was the nicest guy in the world. And so fast forward, and we go to San Jose. Drew says, come out. And we had dinner at Morton's with Tom Holy, who was the PR guy, Joe Thornton, my son Cole, who was about 10 at the time, and my mom, who came because I had a UFC in San Jose. And so she was taking Cole back home. And we sat there with Jumbo. And we became great friends. We were fans of each other. Cole and I skated in between, like we skated after morning skates. We played crossbar. We have pictures in the Shark Head. Bernsey, I knew as a rookie in 2004. Logan, all those guys just sent some, good wishes to Evander Kane and all the tough times that he's going through right now. I hope he's able to pull through. Absolutely. And, good start, good 3-point night and a big goal when they were up 3-1.
Kane stuff though, it's a little bit of karma. You remember when he flashed he was holding the brick of fucking money on his ear? A little bit of karma on that one. I wish no harm on any Vancouver people or anybody in general, but that's when I heard he went bankrupt, I'm like, dude, he posted the picture 10 years ago about how much fucking money you have. Like,
I know. It's tough, but he'll get through it. He's a hockey player. He's gonna get a paycheck pretty quick anyways. You
claim bankruptcy now and then you get a paycheck anyways and you start from scratch.
Yep. And his maybe you have to
downsize your 20-bedroom house into pool,
or sell one of the other 3.
Yeah, right.
I have a lot of respect, and I know Evander's had his ups and downs and this and that and the stories, but all I do is I judge people, Ryan, by the way they treat my kids, not me, my kids. And Evander's been great to my son Cole, but Jumbo, there is no athlete, no human being who has been kinder to Cole than Joe Thornton. And there was actually an article written by Craig Constance from ESPN.com when
I know the name.
Yep. So the Sharks, when they went to the Stanley Cup Finals against Pittsburgh, no ordinary Joe. And in that article, there's a picture from that first night of Joe with my son Cole. And Jumbo is the greatest. And so we bleed teal. And it's my favorite team, my favorite franchise by far, because of our connection with the guys, because of the access we've been given. And I've had access a lot, but the real reason is because I do it with my kid. I do it with my son, and he loves the Sharks and I love the Sharks. And I say, Cody Eakin, why would you even think about cross-checking somebody at the face-off? It's a stupid fucking play. 5 minutes or not, I don't care. You're up, you're winning. Like, you win the draw, you lose the draw, keep 2 hands on your stick and keep your stick on the ice. And when they came back with those power play goals, Jumbo goes, let's get another. And I was like, Cole and I were going crazy. So my Sharks are definitely my favorite team.
Okay, this one is a new question we've been asking.
I'm not good at short answers. I apologize.
I've learned that pretty good. We're about an hour. We're an hour and 45 minutes, give or take the 5 minutes we got to delete. But
thank God for editing.
Hey, yeah, it's okay. This is gonna be I've already called. I took that 2 minute break. I called my buddy. I'm like, this is the best fucking interview we got. He's a
Thank
Cincinnati
you.
boy. Like you need to be on here. He didn't even answer the phone. I left it on his answering machine.
Well,
Okay. If you say there's $1,000 on the line, this is a new question. $1,000 on the line, and you had to sing one karaoke song. What song are you singing?
oh, I got a feeling. Black Eyed Peas. Boom. I got a feeling. Woo, tonight. Let's live it up. I got my money. Let's spend it up. Go on and smash it. Oh, yeah. Huge Black Eyed Peas fan. Taboo, the Black Eyed Peas DJ my daughter's Sweet 16. Taboo's a huge martial arts guy and a UFC and MMA and Bellator fan. And so I've been able to and they're my favorite band. So without a doubt, I'm doing the Peas. I'm pretty sure I did the Peas on New Year's Eve. And I did them well. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite sports movie?
Yeah, my favorite sports movie is it's got to be Miracle. I mean, it's got to be Miracle. They did such a good job.
I know.
They really did a good job.
We hear it a lot when you interview these young kids because all the American kids got to watch that on the bus every day.
I know. And I remember when I was in high school, I remember where I was with my line mate in 1980. We were sophomores in high school. And we didn't even the first period we were out and about thinking they're just going to kill us again. And then we ended up at my house in North Olmsted, Ohio, and we just step down. So it's got to be Miracle. They did a good job in most sports movies, especially hockey. They just screw things up. They have a right-handed shot for a lefty, and they got it right. They got it right on Miracle. Slapshot is always going to be, 1A. I was 14 years old when I saw Slapshot. My mom, Bob Whidden, Jerry Cheever's backup, had a hockey school going, and his boys from Mississauga were in. Mom was trying to decide if she was going to let me go to the movies with the big boys. And the hand-to-hand part was a little much for a 14-year-old, but, I understand it now. But it's got to be Miracle. It definitely does, because they did such a great job. And, and I got to see Herbie a lot in Minnesota when I was there because he was scouting at that time. And I've been able to meet Eruzione, and Mike Ramsey was an assistant for the Wild. And if you're an American kid and you're a hockey player, there's no better day in our life than that one. And the cool thing about it is that I grew up with the Harkins family. And Jansen Harkins now obviously playing for the Jets. His dad, Todd, as you know, being a BC boy, Todd now lives in BC, married a BC girl. Well, I played with Donnie. Their dad, Big Don, was a fullback at Ohio State for Woody Hayes. I played with Donnie. Todd was the next down. Todd played in Calgary for a bit, played in the NHL. His son, Jansen. And Brett was unbelievable. Brett played with my brother, Todd. Brett played a bit in the NHL, a lot in the IHL. He was a skinny, Gretzky-like dude, and he was magic. But there's a scene in Miracle at the very end, and there's a tight shot of Todd Harkins. Todd Harkins is in the movie. And it's that face-off right at the end, and they got this tight shot, and the Harkins boys would always get these red cheeks. And they get these red cheeks, and Big Don was he was a Buckeye, man. He played for Woody Hayes. And there's this shot, and I'll show it to you later, when we talk later, I'll show you in the movie, but they zoom right in, and you see Harky's face for just a second. And so just knowing that Todd Harkins is in the movie for a half a minute is pretty cool as well. Yeah. And Ryan Walter is the referee.
Yes, exactly. And
Herbie, let's get your boys going.
Yeah, and shouts out to the Hanson brothers. We got one of them coming on in a couple days. So I can't remember which one because Mike, my co-host, is the one that booked that. But
I'm trying to see where my picture with them is because I'll tell you what, they're big boys.
Hey, while you're looking for that, what's the worst injury you ever seen?
Well, the worst injury that I have ever seen would be Corey Hill. The second would be the Anderson Silva broken leg.
Yes,
but
of course.
if you remember, Corey Hill was a fighter in the UFC, and when he broke his leg, he was skinny built, really skinny dude. And when he threw the kick and his leg snapped, right? The shin area. He didn't know. And when he went back to step on it and to reset to throw again, and he fell and it went, I was like, that was by far the worst thing that I have ever seen. And then Anderson's,
yes, of course,
sucked as well. But Corey's was worse. And then like Brucey's got 8 angles of the replay, and I'm like, whoa, I tap on the replay, bro. Enough.
Stop showing
and,
that.
That was by far that one was an easy one, right? That was easy. That was horrendous.
Okay, what about the best knockout you've ever called?
The best knockout that I have ever called. I'm thinking Carlos Condit, Dan Hardy. That was one of them, but the best knockout that I ever called was Edson Barboza and Terry Edom. I didn't call the Uriah Hall one because it was on The Ultimate Fighter. Edson Barboza throws a spinning heel kick, and Terry Edom goes down like Apollo Creed in the movie fighting Drago. It was scary because he went down, boom, and it was this spinning heel kick, and it got him, and I swear the body tightened, and he went right down, and it was off the charts crazy. That was the best knockout I ever called. That was scary.
Are you a Shark season ticket holder?
Well, if I lived in San Jose, I would be.
Yeah. So are you in Phoenix? You're in Phoenix.
Well, now they're here. Yeah, now they're here. I got a few connections. I go to a few games. Cole didn't understand, for a lot of years that most kids don't go to the locker room after games. Like, this isn't normal.
your dad's somebody special.
Yeah, right. He did bring up that Russian 5 and say, Dad, I really appreciate it.
While we're talking about the Russian 5 thing there, Kasparaitis said when we asked him who his favorite sports hero was, he said any one of the Russian 5s. That's
not a bad thing. I'll tell you what. First of all, Anna Kournikova was around a lot back in the day, which was cool. And they always said that
good for the eyes.
Right? Yeah. Fedorov was her mentor. Yeah. Okay. When Sergei Fedorov, and Pavel skated the same way, but was a bit smaller, as you know. When Sergei Fedorov first got those white Nike skates, Ryan, the way that he would accelerate it, like morning skates, not just the game, but the way that Sergei Fedorov accelerated in a morning skate so beautifully, it was the most powerful and beautiful and fascinating thing I had ever seen in my life. And it just jumped off the table more because of the white Nike skates.
Oh, I love the white Nike skates.
They were awesome. And Sergei Fedorov was the man. And to watch those guys do what they did, for Scotty Bowman to say, I just said, go do what you do. The biggest control freak in the history of life, and Scotty would admit that, for him to say to 5 guys, you just go do what you do because I don't understand it, but it sure looks good and it works. Unbelievable.
I love the white skates. Even Gretzky wore them at one point.
Yeah.
And I
love watching Pavel play too.
Yeah, I don't think Pavel ever wore the white ones, but some bum ass guy on my beer league team wears those white skates all the time. I hope he sees this.
Yeah, that's a ballsy move right there.
Yeah,
that's like wearing 99. Like
I know the guy scores like 3 goals a season, and he's wearing the white Nike skates on my beer league team at 8 rinks.
yeah, which used to be 4 rinks.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, going back to my days when Cliff Ronning beat me 14-0.
Who's your favorite sports hero? That's my last question.
My favorite sports hero is Joe Thornton.
There we go. I think I knew that. I should have guessed that already.
Yeah. Pete Rose is in there, Boomer Esiason, but my favorite sports hero by far is Joe Thornton. He is the kindest, most caring, humble athlete, person, human being, giving, patient, loving person that I've ever met in my life. And he he would I would be on the road, Ryan, and Cole would go down to the locker room if they were here in Phoenix, and Jumbo would say, "Get over here, kid," and make sure that everybody signed his jersey. Joe Thornton is my favorite sports hero. Nobody is even close.
He sounds like a beauty. And
not a bad passer either.
Yeah. Honestly, I just want to tell you, this is probably the easiest conversation I've had with somebody where I could sit down. I feel like me and you should have fucking beers together one day.
I feel like we should have been burying fucking coconuts from the start of this.
Yeah, no shit. Like, this is the easiest conversation I've had with somebody. It wasn't even scary, or like sometimes you get these interviews where you're so scared, mostly because I'm sober. But so most of my sober ones, I'm scared as shit when I'm trying to do these by myself without my co-host to save me. But this went over really well, and I was hoping after you say this next line, I'm gonna cut it off, but we'll talk after that. But could you just give us "It's all over"?
Oh, you got it. It is all over, just like that.
There we go.
How about here we go? How about welcome to I Only Touch Greatness? Here we go. You want one of those?
Hey, yeah, that's what I was gonna do that off of air, but hey, all right.
So might as well record it.
We're gonna cut the interview off right here. I want to thank you for coming, and you were great.
Ryan, you were great. And I just like being two dudes who love sports and have a lot in common.
And beers.
And beers and the hat and kokanee and my favorite city in North America. I feel like I'm talking to somebody I have a lot of common with, because we do. Yeah. And it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm glad you hunted me down and Houston found me, and I would do it anytime for you,
Houston
brother.
Alexander knew two people that were going to be the same fucking compatible. And he's like, you should interview Mike.
Yeah, he's cool. Houston hit me out of the blue a couple months ago, and I'm like, Houston Alexander? Like, wow. I remember when he came in, he's a beast. But it's been an absolute pleasure. You had me with the old school Canucks hat, buddy. You had me at hello.
Yeah, there you go.
Just tell those two guys, Pedersen and Besser, to be easy on my Sharks.
Well, I hate the Sharks.
I know you do, and you should.
Yeah.
You should. I'm not a big fan. Well, I did like the Canucks for a long time, but I guess the team I hate as much as Michigan now would be, the Vegas Golden Knights. That's pretty obvious being a Sharks fan. Yeah, I don't, other than, obviously Flower being there, Marc-Andre's just such a great dude.
Yeah.
Just forget everything else. I'm
waiting for that Canucks and Seattle rivalry.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be my old boss, Todd Lightwicki, who ran Orca Bay, running it down there. It's going to be good.
Yeah, we just had Cami Granado on. Actually, she's like the head of the scouting, and she's got some high role. I can't remember the exact thing.
She's scouting. Yeah,
and I'm a Seahawks. Me and two other people split two seats, so we're Seahawks season ticket holders. So we're in Seattle a lot. So It's gonna be great to see a Canuck game on a Saturday and the Seahawks on a Sunday. So
beautiful. So my one of my buddies who was in my wedding, who I played at Miami of Ohio with, a guy named Todd Chanel. He's from Naperville, Illinois, and of course the Granados are from Downers Grove, Illinois. And you had Tony, and you had you had all the boys, and Robbie. But Todd would always talk about this little girl, Cami, who would get out there and skate with the boys. And then boom, there she is. And then Cami ends up marrying Ray Ferraro.
Good guy, Ray. We have him coming up next week.
Oh, he's the best.
Hey, can you tell us the Ray Ferraro story? Because
I got a great one for you.
I got him coming up next week. So,
all right, I got a great one for you. Christina Lake. He's hanging out with Kevin Sawyer. He's at Swayze's. Him and Cami, and they go out together on the jet skis, the yellow jet skis, and they're zooming around on Swayze's jet skis on Christina Lake. And he knew Swayze from way back. Was in trail, had the vacation home in Christina Lake. There's also, I think, a Tambolini road there for Steve Tambolini.
Yeah.
Well, somehow Cami and Ray run into each other on the jet skis and just blow up both of Swayze's jet skis. The good news is Razor has got enough money. Ray's got enough money that, he could get him fixed. So that would be story number one with him and Cami, which was awesome. because I love Cammie and Tony being an American, and she's a sweetheart. And I mean, she is the face of, women's hockey
of course,
in America, undoubtedly. And then my second favorite Ray Ferraro story involves Andrew Brunette. So Bruno and Ray, when they were with the Thrashers, were like frickin' frack. So Tony DaCosta and a couple other guys were at Pozzoluna in St. Paul one night, right by the rink, the XL Center. The night before, Ray's in to play against the Wild. And Bruno said, I'm not going to go to dinner tonight. I got a cold. I'm not feeling well, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, we look out the window, Ryan, and we see Ray and Bruno walking down the street. So Tony calls Bruno. And we watch Bruno look at his phone and go, boom, decline, and go running out of the freaking restaurant. And I'm like, hey, you guys are on a date. Bruno, so that was awesome. but you got to ask him about the jet ski crash.
Oh, for sure.
Kevin Sawyer's jet skis at Christina Lake.
For sure. I'm going to have to bring that up. I might even send him like a video clip of you telling the story.
That would be awesome. I have a lot of respect for that guy.
Yeah, we've been talking the last few days, trying to just work out a right time that's going to work for both of us.
Yeah. He's was a great player. He's a great teammate, a great locker room guy, and he's turned into a hell of a broadcaster.
Yeah, that's for sure. He's loved out here in Vancouver. That's for sure.
No question.
Fuck yeah.
One take.
Hey, Mike, that was fucking awesome. This has been a great night. I mean, this is better than what happened to me yesterday on my birthday. This is my birthday gift right now, is interviewing you. So I appreciate this.
That means a lot. Thanks, Ryan. That means a lot, bud. That's
and
awesome.
If you could put in a good word with anybody, I'm going to shoot you a text message thanking you anyways after this. If you could put in a good word, I mean, Joe would be crazy. I would love to interview Joe. I know he's a little busy, but we don't expect 2 hours. I got 2 hours out of you. So I would be happy with 10 minutes from Joe Thornton or Randy Couture's or Rory McDonald, one of our local guys. I would love if you could pull some strings. I would love to.
More than happy to.
I would love it. Hey, Dane, or even I mean, if you really could pull it, Joe Rogan would be up there.
Yeah, I'm lucky if I can still.
I know. He's
awesome though.
Yeah, he's big. But if you could please anything, I would appreciate that. And now that you've seen how this goes and it's a good time.
It's laid back. This is the way to do it, bud. Yeah, and I hope you have great success with it. And I've enjoyed it. Like, we're just sitting here like two dudes at the bar, like you said. We could be at Malone's. Yeah. Well, I'm going to get my gummies and my drinks going right now. My wife's already across the street at the neighbors, so
there you go.
I'm ready to get her going. So I still got Friday in front of me.
I'll try to have this. I'm going to try to have this out for you tomorrow.
Perfect.
And I appreciate this a lot. This has been awesome, Mike.
It was a pleasure to meet you, my friend.
Hey, you too. And I hope we can be friends all the way down the road.
No question about it. You got the bond. We got the bond now, bud.
Yeah, I know. Shit. Okay. Have a good night, Mike.
See you, Ryan. Bye.